Expectations were very high for Bryce Young in his rookie season because he was taken first overall, and not only that, the Panthers traded up to go get him and gave up a haul for him, which eventually turned into Caleb Williams for the Chicago Bears. Not only that, they passed on C.J. Stroud to take Bryce Young as well. Stroud won Offensive Rookie of the Year and looks like a franchise quarterback. At this point in time, Young had a very tumultuous rookie season. There's a lot of uncertainty about if he can continue to be this franchise quarterback for the Panthers that they drafted him to be. Today, we're going to be diving into his 2023 season and the outlook for 24 as well to see if Bryce Young is just a bust or if he has good potential to still turn into that player that the Panthers drafted him to be. Taking a look at the stats from his rookie season, he was 315 for 527. That's a 59.8 completion percentage, 2,877 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. Also added 253 rushing yards. He did have 11 fumbles, though, which was a big problem for him. Diving into some of the advanced stats, they weren't kind to him. A 52.6 passing grade, that was 39th in the NFL. Big time throw percentage of 3.2, that's 29th in the league. Turnover worthy play percentage, 3.3, that's 24th in the league. Average depth of target, 7.8, which was 27th in the league. Adjusted completion percentage, which takes out drops and bad errors from your wide receivers, things like that. He was 37th in the league for that stat. Drop percentage, there were some big high-profile drops from the Panthers, but overall they had the 8th least drops, at least when it comes to percentages. Pressure to sack ratio, which can be a big indictment on an offensive line, but also a quarterback as well. It was the 4th highest in the league. He also took 62 sacks, which was 2nd highest behind only Sam Howell. To be fair, the Panthers' offensive line was ranked 27th in pass block grade and 28th in run block grade. Looking at the stats, things obviously were very dire for Bryce Young in his rookie season, but when you dive into the film, things are a little bit better. I do think there were some major pluses in his game that stood out a little bit among some really bad stuff as well. When it comes to his strengths, one of his biggest things was his creativity when the play broke down, his ability to get out in space, keep his eyes downfield, and give his guys chances in the scramble drill. This is really what made him special in college at Alabama. It's what got him some Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers comparisons where he was able to just be a magician outside of the pocket. I still think that he showed at least flashes of that in the NFL. Obviously, he didn't have a ton of opportunities to do this, but I do think that when he was given the chance, he showed that he can still be a playmaker outside of the structure of the offense. Not only that, I do think that even though he is a shorter quarterback, he's 5'10", he's listed at 200 pounds, but I would imagine he's closer to 180 than 200. He can throw over the middle of the field really, really well. And that's something that you do see is a big problem for quarterbacks like Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson, who are shorter as well. They really struggle to attack the middle of the field. Defenses key in on that, and it means that you really just have to guard the perimeter. Obviously, those guys can beat you over the middle, but I think Bryce Young even does it at a much better rate. In fact, I think that Bryce Young might even be his most lethal over the middle of the field on those deep digs, slant routes, in routes, just stick routes, things over the middle of the field. He is really good. He's good at finding the angles to see between his offensive linemen and being able to deliver over the middle of the field as well. I think that's huge for him in his ability to really kind of take advantage of the full route tree, the full look that the defense is giving him. He still showed a willingness to be aggressive and give his guys chances, even though most of the time it didn't work out, even though his wide receivers weren't getting separation, even though sometimes if he held on the ball a little bit half second longer to give his guy a chance, he would get crushed. I still liked his aggressiveness. He still gave his guys chances downfield to make plays. I think that aggressiveness at least gives me hope that his confidence isn't completely wrecked after his rookie season. And not to mention, I do think that overall his decision-making wasn't bad. I think 11 interceptions isn't bad for a rookie year. He seemed to learn from his mistakes. Jesse Bates picked him off twice on a backside dig in week 1. I think pretty quickly he realized you can't hit that like you did in Alabama at college level. Those safeties are way too good, and they will make a jump on that ball, and you can't be late getting to that backside dig. I do think that he showed he wouldn't make the same mistake twice, usually, and he generally didn't put the ball in super dangerous places. I think that obviously a lack of separation, a lack of protection in front of him made that a little bit harder, but 11 interceptions for a rookie year I don't think is overly bad. When it does come to his weaknesses, I do think that obviously a lot of these showed up early and often in his rookie season. The first thing that kind of sticks out to you is his arm talent. And it wasn't like a ridiculous arm coming out of college, but I did think it was just certainly NFL caliber. And I don't think that's changed, but I do think he has a bottom half of the league arm. And that doesn't mean that you can't be a successful quarterback, but it does mean you just have less of a margin for error. You can't release it half a second late and rip it into a window like you see Josh Allen or Justin Herbert do. You have to throw with anticipation and timing, and it just makes the job a little bit harder when you can't get the ball in with as much velocity as some of the other guys in the league. I think that his arm talent did just show to be at best NFL average. I think it's adequate enough to be a good player in the NFL, but it's not special by any means. Not to mention, I do think his mechanics and his footwork were certainly hurting his arm talent because he faded away way too often in his throws. That definitely made his arm talent deficiencies more prominent. It also caused accuracy inconsistencies, which is something that did pop up that we didn't really see at Alabama. He was a very accurate passer. I do think that in his rookie season, he definitely was more inaccurate than a lot of people were hoping to see. And I think really it's not because he's not an accurate quarterback. It's because his mechanics were all out of whack because he's constantly retreating in the pocket and constantly throwing off his back foot and off platform. I think he needs to be a lot more consistent in getting his feet in the ground, really generating that power through his hips and being able to follow through. That'll really help him not have as many issues when it comes to his arm just velocity. And then I also think it'll help with his accuracy issues as well that did pop up. Less than a 60% completion percentage in his rookie year. Obviously not ideal. And then on top of all of this, as we've kind of mentioned before, his pocket management and blitz pickups and protections, things that he was calling out, I definitely think need major work as well. Much of the pressure was due to awful guard play where the middle of the offensive line just gets absolutely wrecked from the very beginning of the snap and he has no shot. So he's fading away, he's not able to step into the throws. But I do think those little nuanced movements of being able to step into the pocket or move to the right, when the pressure's coming from your backside, being able to feel that rush and just have a natural it factor to avoid the rush, keep your eyes downfield, and make a play in structure. I think that's still where Young needs to improve. That's really what separates the Mahomes and the Burrows and the Lamar Jacksons of the world, that nuanced little pocket movements, the ability to sense where pressure's coming from, step up, or run and know how to escape. I think Young still needs to make major improvements in that regard, and hopefully his confidence isn't shaken too much from his terrible offensive line play in front of him. So that's what his 2023 film looked like. So what does that mean for 2024? There's definitely been major changes to this Panthers team. Most notably, they fired Frank Reich after last year. It was terrible. The offensive line under Frank Reich was a disaster. The play calling, it didn't work for this Panthers team. You bring in Dave Canales, who I really do like. I think he has done a great job getting the most out of quarterbacks who have had down seasons. You look at Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay. He was just coming off of being a true backup quarterback after going to the Rams and the Panthers, getting booted out of Cleveland. And he turned him into a really good starting caliber playoff quarterback. And I mean, that is really impressive from Dave Canales. Not only that, you can see he was part of the resurgence of Geno Smith in Seattle, a career backup who was kind of considered a bust. Turned him into a really good quarterback. And obviously the quarterbacks themselves have a big part in that, but you certainly have to tip your cap to Dave Canales, what he's been able to do to get the most out of his quarterbacks. He has also had success with smaller quarterbacks as well, which is another kind of tip of the cap to him. Baker Mayfield, shorter guy. Russell Wilson back in Seattle had a lot of success with him as well. So he has seen what it takes to be successful as a smaller quarterback, as a quarterback who needs kind of their confidence boosted and being able to put them in right situations. I think that's a really good hire. When it comes to a scheme, he likes to attack the middle of the field. Chris Godwin in his offense had 635 yards just between the numbers as the primary slot option. He also used his tight ends and running backs in the passing game in the middle of the field. You can see that from Cade Otton and Rachaad White having career years in the receiving game. I think they were a big part of the offense, and obviously just a wide distribution of getting the ball to numerous weapons. Not only that, he also adds verticality to the offense, both up the seams and outside the numbers. He does a great job of moving guys around, getting good matchups. You had Mike Evans in the slot. You would put, Rachaad White out wide, just get those matchups and be able to attack vertically. I think he used a lot of really interesting concepts in that regard. And I do think he does a great job using screens and RPOs and play action to just kind of mix up what the defense is seeing on a snap-by-snap basis. And it makes it really hard to know what's coming and what to be on the lookout for this offense. One thing with Dave Canales that he absolutely needs to prove is his run game coaching. When he was the Buccaneers offensive coordinator last year, they were 30th in PFF rushing rating. Rachaad White did have a 1,000-yard season, but it was almost entirely due to volume. It was not an efficient rushing attack by any means. The run blocking was absolutely atrocious, which certainly played a part in it, but he certainly had a big part in the scheming of those things. Most of the rushing concepts were zone-based, which is probably what Carolina will run as well, kind of that Shanahan system wide zone offense. So I will be curious with some of the additions they've made if they're going to be able to run the ball better. Canales has a lot to prove in that regard, but I do like bringing in a young, ascending offensive coach that has proven he can get the most out of young quarterbacks that maybe have been a little bit shorter over the course of their careers and maybe been given up on. I think Bryce Young needs that kind of guy in his year, and I do think Canales was a great hire for this team. Then looking at some of the new additions that they've made on the actual roster itself, Xavier Legette and Deontay Johnson, two big weapon additions that they got this year. Legette, they traded up to the back end of the first round for. He was kind of a late breakout at South Carolina, but had certainly had some things going on in his life that may have caused that. Makes it a little bit more kind of excusable to see that in a draft profile. He's a big, athletic, contested catch weapon that can absolutely be used in the screen game, underneath, get the ball in his hands, and he is big and fast and athletic. So get the ball in his hands, and he can be a big yak weapon for you as well. Then you also bring in Deontay Johnson, who, when he can catch the ball, drop issues have been kind of the pinnacle issue of his career. But if you can get him to catch the ball reliably, this guy is one of the best pure route runners in the entire NFL. Being able to create that separation and easy throwing windows for Bryce Young, I think, is going to be huge for this team. He really had no one to throw to last year. You had Adam Thielen, who is still on this team, and I do think will be a really good power slot for them. He really played pretty well and came down with some tough catches. You move on from DJ Chark, some of the other guys on this team that just were not getting the job done. And you had a great complementary skill set. Legette, your big contested catch ball winner, yak type. You've got Deontay Johnson, your separator. And then you have Adam Thielen, your power slot, contested catch weapon. I really think it's a well-constructed room. Obviously, they have a lot to prove, but I do like kind of the thought process behind these additions. Not to mention you bring in Jatavian Sanders, who a lot of people had a second-round grade on. He is an athletic yak tight end. I think he can be a dynamic weapon in the receiving game as well. Additionally, you did bring in a new running back, Jonathan Brooks, second-round pick out of Texas. Huge part of the issue with last year was not being able to run the ball. So Jonathan Brooks should be a big addition to that running game. I think that he wasn't my RB1, but I do think a lot of people had him in that spot, and he is a very talented runner. He did have 11.4 yards per reception in 2023 as well, and almost 300 yards, so he can certainly continue to develop into a nice receiving back for Bryce Young as well. The biggest additions, though, were on the offensive line, signing Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis to be the starting guards of this team. You have Damian Lewis, who is a very good starting caliber guard. He's nothing amazingly special, but just getting some stability in that room is huge. Robert Hunt, I think, is an even better version of that. I think he's a very versatile, not a scheme-dependent player, and he is really talented. I think he was the best guard on the market. And you gave big paydays to both of these players, but it's a huge upgrade over the guys they were trotting out last year. Most of these guys shouldn't really even be taking snaps in the NFL. And Hunt and Lewis are both good, proven starting caliber guards, so that is a huge addition. Not to mention you bring in Yosh Nijman, who was a very good swing tackle for the Packers. I don't think he was anything close to a liability when he played for him. Had 22 starts at both right and left tackle, so big-time insurance. You're hoping Ike Ekwonu and Taylor Moton get back on the right foot here. So this offensive line does look much improved as well. I do think one big thing to note is other quarterbacks taken first overall have struggled in really bad situations their rookie year and turned out to be successful and found their footing in the NFL. I think the best example of it is Trevor Lawrence, who had a disaster season with Urban Meyer. Lawrence had 3,641 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 17 interceptions as a rookie. He was pretty terrible. You look, he had a 3.4 big-time throw percentage and a 3.7 turnover-worthy play percentage. that's pretty much identical to what Bryce Young had. He was even worse when it came to turnovers and a little bit better when it came to big-time throws, but he was not a good quarterback his rookie year, and a lot of it was just due to the terrible situation around him. I think that Trevor Lawrence is safely a top 15 quarterback in the NFL now. He might not have lived up to the number 1 overall pick, but I do think that Bryce Young can certainly get to being a starting caliber quality quarterback for this Panthers team. And I do think that that is still within the realm of possibility for Bryce Young's career, even after this tumultuous rookie season. So with Young, he's ultimately always going to be compared to Caleb Williams, who the Panthers could have had if they didn't trade up for him, or CJ Stroud, who turned out to be Offensive Rookie of the Year and a great quarterback for the Texans already, leading them to a playoff victory. For obvious reasons, those comparisons are going to be made, and it probably will not ever be a fair comparison for Bryce Young. He's not going to most likely live up to the level of talents that those guys have, but I still do think Bryce Young could turn into a really good quarterback. He was drafted first overall for a reason. There is talent in there, and I do think he has the traits and showed some good flashes in his rookie year among a lot of ugly that does give me hope that he still can turn into a quality quarterback. So let me know your thoughts down below. Is Bryce Young a complete bust already? Is he someone that can turn the corner and become a quality franchise level quarterback? Let me know your thoughts down below. If you like this kind of content, please hit that subscribe button down below. Going to be getting out more player profiles, team predictions, scouting reports, all that good stuff. You won't want to miss it. So please hit that like button while you're down there. It helps support the channel. I appreciate you watching so much. I will catch you in the next one.